So, even if you don't care about sports like me, you're probably well aware of the Tale of Two Halftime shows, the actual Super Bowl show with Bad Bunny, and the conservative coping show that TPUSA put on. Bands that sound like the most diluted post grunge music you've ever heard with a fiddle, which I guess constitutes as rock country, as well as lip syncing and fake musicians.
I just wanna catch my fish.
If you think it's hard being country, wait till you hear how hard it is being trans. Also, it's apparently very easy to be country when you can make the blandest, shittiest music and still become a success because you just endorse and pander to all the people whose messages you agree with. And you can get paid a couple millions of dollars, I imagine, to be on the show on TV. And all the people whose politics you support are in charge of the country, dismantling the Constitution you claim to love. But oh, a girl wants to be called a boy. Aw, it's so hard being country when you have to hear about people's personal choices that don't affect my own life. Oh, it's so hard living in a sheltered small town. I sure do hate being told to grow and adjust and adapt. But here's the main point I wanted to get to in this video. This show is not American. To me, personally, what America has always been is a multicultural nation. And I'm wearisome of coming off as a little too hippy-dippy or naive and overly optimistic with this viewpoint, but just hear me out. Afraid of coming off as too much of a kumbaya, hopeful white boy. But no, trust me, I'm not arguing for cultural homogeny here. Just hear me out. None of us are Native Americans, except for, of course, the Native Americans, who we wiped out, pushed aside, and genocided. But even considering the indigenous people who are left, America is full of people who come from very diverse, rich backgrounds, and we all intermingle in this place. I don't like calling it a melting pot because, again, I don't want things to be meshed down and smushed into this bland, boring blob. Rather, to me, it's more of a place where we share our ethnicities, we share our cultures, without erasing them. You'd be surprised. I think we often forget just how much our Western society has evolved and has adapted from so many different rich ethnicities. And we just don't know it. You know, I heard someone the other day, we were talking about this, and someone said, like, oh, without German, like, nobody really goes out for German food or anything. But then they were proven wrong because, you know, there's hamburgers and there's different drinks that they have offered. So much of our food, so much of our architecture, so much of our music. All the music that they're doing at TPUSA, the rock in the country, and even the rapping that Kid Rock is doing, like, that all has roots in black music. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that that white people shouldn't be doing that music. I think it's okay, and I think it's beautiful. But all the people at this show, and anyone who is fair-skinned as me and watching this, you are not white. You are, I don't know what you are, but you are Italian, or Greek, or Polish, or Russian, or Swedish, or Lithuanian, or maybe even Latin. And odds are, when your people first came here, they also suffered discrimination. Discrimination was even worse. It was all the different white races fighting each other. Just, oh, it was the Dutch hating the Irish, and hating the Germans, and hating the Greeks, and the Polish, and the Italians big time. But we have moved on from that as a society. You can go out and get Italian food, or Greek food, or Mediterranean food. Heck, even Mexican cuisine is more predominant. One of our major fast food chains, Taco Bell and Del Taco, and I'm not saying that those are authentic Mexican cuisines, don't get me wrong. I'm saying that, you know, that type of cuisine has become more appropriate. It has been adapted into our culture. How many white families have Taco Tuesday? I grew up in a place with a very large portion of the population was not white. They were Hispanic or Filipino or Hawaiian or anything. I grew up with a lot of Spanish-speaking people. And I think there's many places in this country, especially on the West Coast, that have those intermingling ethnicities. You can look at world history as a whole, and okay, perhaps it wasn't always exactly sharing culture. That's not the best way to go about it, always. But I am someone who has really no roots in my cultural or ethnic background at all. I'm like 5 to 8 different European countries. I've never really had a connection to that. I've never really even had a connection to being American. So take this with a grain of salt, maybe. But I am interested in other cultures. That's why I love foreign films. I love seeing how people live in different places. That's why I love art in general. That's why I love all these historical relics that we put in museums and people have borrowed and taken from and influenced by, and we've created just more and more things as we've gone on. So again, to reiterate, it is about sharing culture, not taking it or erasing it, but sharing it. That, to me, is what America is. America is sort of the center point for different people all over the world to come together. I'm sounding very... my naive hippiness is coming out. But no, honestly, that's what America is to me. It is different people. It is fighting against the system who are repressing people. America has been the triumph for women's rights and gay rights and African American rights, for the abolition of slavery. America is the revolution against the British rule when America was founded, fighting against the powers that be. That is America. It's not lying down, opening up your mouth, sticking out your tongue, and hoping Trump shoves his boot deep down inside your throat. That's American. This little triggered safe space that conservatives were mocking millennials for doing, this little coping concert, that is un-American. That is not American. That is one of the most anti-American things I have seen. When you watch Bad Bunny's halftime show, he's not trying to make you speak Spanish or make you act more Spanish or Mexican or Latin. Trust me, Latin Americans do not want that. Trust me, the last thing Latin Americans want is for a bunch of white people to be walking around with straw hats, speaking broken Spanish, trying to buy street corn on the corner. He is simply sharing his culture and other people's culture and inviting everyone, including white people, to partake in it. You sucking up to the powers that be, that are tearing apart the Constitution you claim to love, that are hurting the people who you have more in common with. I mean, not the performers, but maybe the people watching. That is un-American. And conservatives saw that and got so triggered that they had to create their safe space, something that they were constantly bashing on millennials for doing. They looked at a man who spoke a different language than them, who is an American citizen, by the way, but was speaking a different language than them, and told them to love each other. That was too much for them. That offended them. Because an artist was singing in Spanish, and he said, the only thing stronger than hate is love. He didn't even say fuck ICE. He didn't even say anything radical. It was a show about love and diversity and bringing people together. He had different flags from different nations, including the United States. And he named off all these different places of the Americas at the end of the show. Conservative Christians saw that. A show about diversity and love and real American values. And they couldn't handle it. They were offended by it. They want to act like the victims, even though the guy they voted for, the majority of the people they voted for, are in power. These self-proclaimed Christians had an issue with that message. That's what this whole show was for, because the singer was singing in a different language. TP brought us the lamest post-grunge we've ever heard with a fiddle. I guess that constitutes as country rock. It also brought us transphobia and a message to devote ourselves to Jesus. One of those shows was about love. And strange enough, it was not the one that mentioned Jesus. A part of me feels like I almost want to reclaim what it means, that word American, what it means to be an American, because so many people who are very like pro America and patriotic tend to be right leaning. And like every time I hear that, I'm just like, that's not American. That's not American. The best moments America has had have been the revolutionary moments, the great leaps in history and rights for other people. It has been standing in solidarity with people who are different from you and sharing in that culture that they bring. That to me is American. The TPUSA show is anti-American. It is an insanely anti-American thing. America is diversity. So when you see all these people who are against diversity and DEI, what are you trying to preserve? You're trying to preserve the actual America, but diversity is America. You are trying to preserve nothing. You are fighting for nothing. Final thoughts. I mean, honestly, it's just pathetic, you know? I mean, back then, it used to just be hateful, you know? It used to just be hateful rhetoric, but now it's just hateful and pathetic. It's like that's the world we live in now. It's just embarrassing, honestly. Like we can look back on like past hate groups and be like, wow, they were awful. But like we're gonna look back on this and be like, they were awful and also just really stupid. Like this isn't going to just evoke anger. Like it's going to evoke laughs. People are going to look back on this and laugh at it. They're gonna think it's hilarious that Christian conservatives now have to like pretend to like Kid Rock and now have to pretend to like hip hop, even though a lot of them hate it. If you consider what Kid Rock is doing as hip hop, and I I wouldn't make that claim, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, as people have been pointing out, I mean, conservatives are at the end of the rope. They're hanging on by the little phrase, but who knows? I don't know if people like that can actually have their minds changed or really change at all. Who knows? I mean, I hope they're not stuck that way, but yeah. So yeah, again, it's un-American. Real America is people's differences and learning to get along anyway. So, so yeah. Final thoughts. Be a real American, but most importantly, be kind to each other.